And I'm in favor of the United States Constitution. I think there's many, on the whole, I think there's many positive things about our founding, but I think that many Catholics here indeed think that, the state has an obligation to recognize that its authority comes from God, but it is the kind of neutral God which does not profess any particular religion. It is only the God, at most that can be known by reason, and perhaps even a minimalist version of that the state really needs to recognize for a healthy social order. But Leo goes beyond that. I would like to read a little bit because this will be such a contentious point. I would like to read there are a number of passages here. I don't know how much of it I'll read, but he's just been talking about the authority of the civil power coming from God and the duty of obedience to rulers. This is in Immortale Dei. So he's clearly not just talking about civil society as a whole, but civil society as ruled by the state specifically. He says, as a consequence, the state, constituted as it is clearly bound to act up to the manifold and weighty duties linking it to God by the public profession of religion. I'm going to go a little bit further here in the quote, skip over a little bit. Since no one is allowed to be remiss in the service due to God, and since the chief duty of all men is to cling to religion in both its teaching and practice, not such religion as they may have a preference for, but the religion which God enjoins, and which certain and most clear marks show to be the only one true religion, it is a public crime to act as though there were no God. So too is it a sin for the state not to have care for religion as something beyond its scope or as of no practical benefit, or out of many forms of religion to adopt that one which chimes in with the fancy, for we are bound absolutely to worship God in that way which he has shown to be his will. All who rule therefore would hold in honor the holy name of God, and one of their chief duties must be to favor religion, to protect it, to shield it under the credit and sanction of the laws, and neither to organize nor enact any measure that may compromise its safety. This is the bounden duty of rulers to the people over whom they rule. So this is essentially the core of his teaching about the state's duties towards religion. And later on, he also argues against treating all religion, putting all religious sects on the same ground as the one true religion. So we can get into the details of that, but I wanted to just quote directly so people can hear Leo's own words there.
Absolutely, and in fact, particularly in Libertas, he specifically attacks people who think that the state's duties towards God are limited to what can be known through reason alone and just the content of the natural law. He says, once you realise the state's authority is based on God, you can't suddenly stop attending to divine authority just because it's being communicated to you through revelation as opposed to reason. It's still being communicated to you. And insofar as you have an obedient attitude towards God, which you better have because that's where your authority comes from, O state, you can't switch it off just because we've got a bit of revelation suddenly, provided the revelation is clearly delivered. So you've got actually to recognise revealed religion as well as natural religion. And it's inconsistent to do one without the other. So he specifically addresses that we will have in God we trust, but we'll leave the revealed bit to private life.
Yes, because a Maritain or a John Courtney Murray would certainly have believed that the state, should recognize. I believe they would have believed. I know Maritain would have believed that the state should recognize, the source of its authority in God, and but they somehow believed that this could function in practice somehow without any real need for the state to officially recognize and favor the one true religion above others.
We'll come back to say a little more about why it's so important for the state to be specifically Christian. But there is that fundamental case that Leo returns to, which is that the state must recognise the true basis of its authority and therefore obey God, however he communicates his will. And he's very, very, very clear that revelation isn't something that you just whispered in the night, which is a bit dubious. A lot of modern people tend to think, revelation, that's kind of, it's a bit like a dodgy radio signal in the mountains.
Yeah.
He's constantly saying, it's clear what the true revelation is. We've got the prophets, we've got miracles of Christ, we've got etc., etc. So you've got no business pretending you haven't heard in the public sphere.
The modern attitude is that, at best, the act of faith requires, this almost heroic, superhuman, leap. And of course, it actually is superhuman, but they act as though it's nigh impossible to come to conclusions about what the true religion is. And Leo pushes back against this. Now, of course, it may have been easier. There may have been fewer impediments to this in Leo's time than in ours, and I think we can recognize that. But nonetheless, if individuals are obligated to recognize the true religion and aren't simply going to be let off the hook, save for serious impediments, neither are states in this matter. But he follows up with this caveat, though, which I think is good to have, that he says the church says it's unlawful to place the various forms of divine worship on the same footing as the true religion, as I just mentioned. But, he says, quote, does not on that account condemn those rulers who, for the sake of securing some great good or of hindering some great evil, allow patiently custom or usage to be a kind of sanction for each kind of religion having its place in the state. And in fact, the churches want to take earnest heed that no one shall be forced to embrace the Catholic faith against his will. So that's worth saying, that he doesn't believe that every circumstance is going to be the same as far as the footing on which the state places various religions, the degree to which the state explicitly recognizes the Catholic faith. But it's very clear that religious pluralism or a non-confessional state cannot be the ideal. It's very clear that there is an obligation, even if tempered by various concerns of the common good in various situations, for the state to explicitly recognize the true religion.